The world ending in 2012, for many people, was an interesting what-if kind of scenario. But in the year 2012, 10% of the human population legitimately thought that the world could end by the end of the year, according to a Reuters poll, which to me is a very high percentage, whether it be a meteor smashing into Earth, a magnetic pole reversal, Planet X colliding into us, or, something else. And fears of an impending apocalypse were reflected throughout pop culture. From the 2009 apocalyptic blockbuster movie 2012 to the hit Jay Sean and Nicki Minaj song in 2010, the Britney Spears song about dancing until the world ended in a bunker, and a Jell-O commercial about offering Jell-O as a sacrifice to the Maya gods to keep the world from ending. Jell-O, respectfully, is not a good enough sacrifice to keep the world around. But I digress. December 21st, 2012 was believed to be the last day of humanity for a lot of reasons. Looking back now, the 2012 phenomenon feels kind of ridiculous. Most people didn't believe it at the time, but there were legitimate fears of an impending apocalypse. So why did 10% of the human population around the world, at varying levels, think that the world could potentially end in 2012? How exactly did these fears stem from the Maya calendar? And did anybody even bother to fact check anything? Because the ancient Mayans never really predicted the end of the world anyway. Let's discuss the 2012 phenomenon. The 2012 phenomenon was not the world's first doomsday scenario. There's been a number of other doomsday scenarios that have been predicted throughout history, which obviously none of them happened. In the year 1213, Catholic Pope Innocent III predicted the world would end in 60-ish years because he thought a son of perdition was rising, or something. In 1499, a German scholar predicted that a great flood would destroy the world on February 20th, 1524. Pamphlets were distributed to get the word out that the world was going to end via flood. A lot of people got boats built so that they could survive, and somebody actually built an ark. But apparently, there was a drought in 1524, and many people thought that the world would end on May 19th, 1910 because of Halley's Comet. Halley's Comet passed close to Earth around that time, emitting a large, spectacular tail because of the atmosphere, which many people at the time thought held poisonous gas that would descend to Earth and kill everything. I'd like to safely report that they were wrong in their assessment. There have been several doomsday predictions throughout history, and I'm sure in the future, there's going to be more that impact humanity to varying degrees. But the 2012 phenomenon was very widespread, and it revolved around the ancient Maya. The ancient Maya were a pre-Columbian civilization that lived in southeastern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and western El Salvador and Honduras. They were known for their advanced Mayan language, their understanding of astronomy, arts, mathematics, and human sacrifices. Which, human sacrifices have absolutely nothing to do with this video, but it's something. The ancient Maya were known for their calendar, which is the root of the 2012 phenomenon. I think the calendar is kind of confusing, or maybe I'm just not a smart person. And don't agree with me in the comments. I can see you typing, I can say that, but you can't. The end of their calendar did not signal the end of the world. I'm not an expert on the ancient Maya. I did some research and here's what I got. There was actually two calendars that the ancient Maya used. There was a 260-day calendar and a 365-day calendar. The 260-day calendar is a divine calendar. It's largely associated with rituals and it's still used by many people today. It has two wheels, one with 20-day names and the other with 13-day numbers. And every successive day, the wheel is turned, which matches a combination together. It takes 260 days to complete a full cycle. The 365-day calendar is more of a solar calendar. It has 18 months of 20 days with an additional 5-day unlucky period. These two calendars were combined and would not repeat for 52 years. And these 52 years were known as the calendar round. The 2012 phenomenon is based on the misinterpretation of the Maya calendar. The calendar round repeated every 52 years without distinction, over and over and over and over, and apparently it was impossible to distinguish from different cycles. Imagine you're trying to talk about the year 42 in history, but the year 42 could have been 10 different 42s. So hey, when did they build that building? 42. Last year? No, 342s ago. I was gonna say, that building's old. I'm not sure the conversations went exactly like that, but still, it's confusing. It's believed a priest in 236 developed the long count calendar, which had the purpose of distinguishing different calendar calendar round cycles. One day was called this. 20 days made that. 18 of those made this. 20 of those made this. And 20 of those made this. And a great cycle was 13 of these. My head is spinning right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. To try to summarize what I've been able to gather from the internet, the beginning of the great cycle was thought to be the origin of creation. And the end of the great cycle was December 21st, 2012. There was a belief that the ancient gods tried to create and failed with 3 worlds before ours. Our world was the 4th, which began on the 0 date. And the great cycle ended on December 21st, 2012, which would have led to the apocalypse. That's a scary belief. Except it's not real. Many historians thought that December 21st, 2012 would be a time for great celebration, not a time for meteor showers. It's said that the ancient Mesoamericans did not believe that the world was going to end, but rather that we would enter a new great cycle, like the beginning of a new millennium or something. So when did these end of the world fears really start, you ask? It's said the 1960s. There was a stone tablet that was found in the 1960s, which is said to have been the root for the 2012 phenomenon. There is an archaeological site in Mexico, which had hieroglyphs of the god of creation and war, returning to Earth at the end of the Great Cycle. It was theorized from the hieroglyphs that the ancient Maya thought that the gods would bring destruction to the Earth and maybe start over at the conclusion of the 4th cycle. But a lot of experts did not reach that same conclusion from the hieroglyphs. There was an archaeologist in 1966 who said about the world ending in 2012 that Armageddon would overtake the degenerate peoples of the world and our present universe would be annihilated. Until about the 1990s, when a lot of experts started speaking up because they were like, wait, we don't think that they thought that was going to happen. In 1990, these researchers said, the Maya did not conceive this to be the end of creation. Mark Van Stone said, there is nothing in the Maya or Aztec ancient Mesoamerican prophecy to suggest that they prophesied a sudden or major change. The notion of the great cycle coming to an end is a modern invention. But still, there was a huge cultural reason why the 2012 phenomenon doomsday scenario just spread across the world. Around 2012, a lot of people were uncomfortable in life. Let's look at some of the global events leading up to 2012, shall we? As 1999 transitioned into 2000, many people were afraid that our technology would stop working in what's known as Y2K, which obviously did not happen, which left an impact on people's psyches. Fresh on people's minds, the Y2K era was followed by the 9/11 era in the United States, which was really difficult. Shortly followed by the Great Recession of 2008. The economy was beginning to recover around 2012, but still, a lot of people were on edge about a lot. Society's unhappiness at the time was reflected in their top charting music, because the unhappier the society, the happier the music. It's a whole thing, and I actually have a separate video on it, so whatever. But in 2012, social media was, more or less, a newer element in society, and ideas could spread across large populations without a lot of fact-checking. Around December 21st, 2012, ABC even posted this as a weather report, and this was a joke. I think. Ideas would go around like wildfire, some true, some untrue, and others getting twisted like a strange game of telephone. It said that this combination is what made the 2012 phenomenon so extreme at the time. Many people didn't necessarily believe in the Maya aspect of it, but December 21st, 2012 became associated with the apocalypse. NASA even released a website assuring people that the world would not end in 2012. Does the Mayan calendar end in December 2012? Just as the calendar you have on your kitchen wall does not cease to exist. Wait a second, NASA, how do you know that I have a calendar on my kitchen wall? That's awfully suspicious. Could planets align in a way that impacts Earth?
No.
Is the Earth in danger of being hit by a meteor? Blah, blah, blah. Dinosaurs, blah, blah, blah. No. Obviously, the existence of the NASA site probably did very little to convince people with fears that the world was gonna be fine. But still, NASA had to try, right? And with everybody talking about it and kind of making it seem legitimate, the end of the world seemed realistic to a lot of people, with some people really believing it and others morbidly curious. Some people were pretty intense. Many built doomsday doomsday bunkers and gathered non-perishable food for the end of the world. There was a mountain in France many theorists believe would keep them safe, as they believe that aliens would save them if they stood on top of the mountain on December 21st, 2012. 100,000 people were expected to show up on the day, and the French police got a little nervous about it, so what they ended up doing is blocking off all access to the mountain. Even some famous people took preparations. Reality stars Heidi Montag and Spencer Pratt reportedly spent the majority of their money leading up to 2012 because they apparently thought the world was going to end and that they'd have no other chance to spend their money. It's hard to spend money when there's no world anymore. I understand where they're coming from. And in China, about 20% of the population realistically thought that the world could end in 2012. People in China apparently bought tickets to board a new Noah's Ark or something, which I have logistical questions about how the Noah's Ark thing would have worked. But that was not the vibe everywhere. In areas of Central America, many people held celebrations because they did not think that the world was going to end. They thought it was a time for happiness. But realistically, it seems like the majority of the world's population went on with their lives as normal, maybe mildly entertained or amused, or perhaps wondering, should I run up my credit card bill because if I don't have to pay it back, I could totally buy a yacht. So how did all of this end up, you ask? Well, we're still here, so you tell me. One thing's for sure though, at the time when many were worried about the end of the world, popular music tended to be upbeat and happy. If you want to know more about how music gets happier when economies get bad, please click on this video here. And thank you so much for watching.